All right, so in today's coding challenge, we're going to do a little bit of wall painting. And the idea is we're going to create a program that helps us calculate how many cans of paint we need to buy for a given surface area of wall. The maths involved is very simple, and I'm going to talk you through it if you're not confident with maths. But essentially, we want to be able to use our inputs to modify our function so that it does something every single time we use it. Go ahead and click on day 8.1, area calculation, and we're going to complete this coding challenge. So firstly, you'll notice that down here on lines 10, 11, 12, and 13, I've got some code that's going to help us check your solution, and we're going to use your function to actually calculate the number of cans of paint we need to buy. You're basically painting a wall, and the instructions on the paint can says that 1 can cover 5 square meters of wall. Given any height and any width, your program needs to calculate how many cans of paint you need to buy. The maths, as I say, is pretty simple. All you have to do is multiply the height by the width to get the area of the wall, and then you simply divide it by the coverage per can. We said that 5 square meters per can, so it means you're always going to be dividing by 5. So let's say that we had a wall which was 2 meters high and 4 meters wide, and the coverage, as always, is going to be equal to 5. Then the calculation would be as simple as 2 times 4 divided by 5, which is 1.6. So we need 1.6 cans of paint. But because you can't buy 0.6 can of a paint, I've tried this in the store, they said no, and they told me to go away. So we actually have to round up to the nearest whole number. So in this case, we need to buy 2 cans. Now, the really important thing to draw your attention to is down here, I actually call the function. So I'm calling the function and I'm giving in some named arguments. So this is really, really important. If you review the previous lessons, then you should know what name you need to give your function and what name you need to give the parameters for the code to actually work without any errors. Remember to take a look at the example inputs down here and example output, because you need to print out something along these lines. So it should say you'll need X cans of paint depending on your calculation. And finally, if you need a hint as to how to round up a number, then you can either go ahead and Google for it, use Stack Overflow, that's probably the best way, or you could give it a guess. And finally, if you really get stuck, take a look at the hint section. And once you're done, then come back over here and we'll walk through the solution together. Pause the video now and go ahead and complete this coding exercise. All right, so did you manage to get that right? If not, take a look at this video, and then once you're done, take a look at the solution code and try to compare against your code to see if there were any errors that you made. Now, this challenge is pretty doable. All we have to do is to create our function, and we create any function using def. And how do we know what name to give this function? Well, we take a look at where the function was called down here, and you can see that it's called paint_calc. So this is what we have to give our function as the name. And then we of course have our parentheses, our colon, and then inside here we're going to do all the calculations. Now the next thing we have to look at is what name we should give our parameters. And you can see I've got named arguments here. So that means each of these are going to be the names of the parameters: height, width, and cover. So the parameters are going to go inside the parentheses: height, width, and cover. And it's only if we actually spell these parameters exactly the same as what we've got down here in the argument will our code actually work. Now let's go ahead and take the height and multiply it by the width to get the area. So area equals height times width. And then with that area, we can divide it by the coverage per can. So let's call it num of cans equals area divided by cover. And now remember that this is going to be a decimal number occasionally, like here, and we have to round it up to the next whole number. If we take a look at this particular Stack Overflow, you can see that the question is exactly what we want, right? How do you round up a number in Python? And if you did some Googling, then this might have been the Stack Overflow question you would have landed on. And essentially it tells us you have to import maths, and from the math module you use a function called ceiling, and then inside the parentheses you put in the input. To do that, we first import maths. It's math without the S, and then we can call math.ceiling and wrap this result around the parentheses. So this is going to take the result here from a decimal number to a whole number by rounding it up to the ceiling. So now we're finally ready to give our output. So we're going to do that by printing it. So we're going to print, and I'm definitely going to need an F string. So I'm going to put F in there and paste this string. And instead of having the hard-coded 5 here, I'm going to put in the num of cans instead. So now when this line of code on line 17 calls paintCalc, passing in each of these arguments, then it's going to be able to run this function here and print out how many cans of paint I'll need. Now all we have to do is test our code. So let's hit run and let's put in a random height. Let's say it's 5 meters high and 3 meters wide. And it tells us that we need 3 cans of paint. So 5 by 3, the area is 15 square meters. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Now what if we had a decimal number? Let's say we had a height of 7 and a width of 13. Then in this case, it tells us we need 19 cans. So 7 times 13 is 91. 91 divided by 5 is 18.2. And 18.2 rounded up is 19. And we've now completed this challenge. Did you manage to get it right? If not, be sure to watch this video and see if you can go back and fix your code, and you can compare it against the solution code I've got here by going to this link right here. And once you're done, head over to the next lesson where I've got a slightly harder coding challenge for you.